Alright, man, peace. So brothers, I just wanted to do this very quick video on this character, Ronan Farrow. He's someone that all of you out there should be aware of. I'm talking to you so-called black men, because we have to understand and grasp that in these last days they're going to try to ratchet up this alleged antipathy between the masculine principle and the feminine principle, because they want to cause the man in this society, all men, but of course I'm focused on you so-called black men. They want you to disassociate yourselves from the conventional understanding of what masculinity or manhood is, and they're going to utilize what are called change agents, or agents of change, really agents of chaos. People whose job it is to dig up as much information as they can, whether it be real information, misinformation, or disinformation, on illustrious or prominent males in society, particularly heterosexual males, to see if they can disenfranchise them in some way, and that can be utilized as a microcosm of what they want done to the entire quote-unquote male gender in society. Is what they call the quote-unquote attack on the patriarchy. So just getting back to this person, Ronan Farrow, for those of you who don't know who he is the alleged son of Woody Allen, the famous director who presided over many famous films in the 1970s and 80s. He kind of fell from grace in the late 80s, early 90s with the allegations about pedophilia and his quote-unquote relationship with his foster child, or what have you, his stepdaughter. I believe her name was Soon-Yi, or Soon-Yi Previn. In the midst of all that, he was also married to Mia Farrow. Now, I believe that Mia Farrow had adopted Soon-Yi and brought her into the family, quote-unquote family, with Woody Allen when she married him. Supposedly, they had a child together that they named Ronan, or Ronan Farrow. Well, anyone who looks at Ronan Farrow's face will quickly understand that that is not Woody Allen's son. That is why there are allegations or rumblings that Ronan Farrow's actual father is Frank Sinatra. And when you look at their two photos, or photos of their faces side by side, it's very easy to discern the difference between someone who would be the son of Woody Allen as opposed to the son of Frank Sinatra, or either one of those two men to have a child with Mia Farrow, because Ronan Farrow looks like an exact 50-50 mixture between Frank Sinatra and Mia Farrow. I'm bringing all this up because one thing that we have to understand is that not only do they want the face of the fall of masculinity to be a woman, they just want the face of the fall of masculinity to be any entity that exudes the feminine energy. So it's not just women, it's also the transgender, and it's also the homosexual. And that's the role that Ronan Farrow plays. He's acting as a hound dog trying to search out any form of heterosexual display of sexuality, especially in the media world or the entertainment sphere, so that they can utilize some form of a public lynching and embarrass heterosexual men into emasculating themselves in front of women. Over the course of this interview, I'm just going to chime in here and there so that I can expound on some of Ronan Farrow's origins as well as his leanings. So of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
All right, in his explosive new book called Catch and Kill, Ronan Farrow details allegations of sexual assault in the media industry and his former boss's alleged attempts to stifle his reporting. The book describes sexual assault allegations against disgraced Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein and former NBC News anchor Matt Lauer. Both men have denied any wrongdoing.
Once again, they're trying to totally re-engineer society so that men are scared of women and so that men are scared of the feminine principle. They don't want men to show any form of authoritativeness, whether it be in the workplace or in the home.
In a moment, we'll talk with Farrow about his book. His Pulitzer Prize-winning reporting helped.
And to be quite honest with you, it would not surprise me at all if Ronan Farrow is a female to male transgender. That's the vibe that I get from this person when I look at them, not only their countenance, but also their body type or their body shape. Once again, he is a homosexual. He's an out-of-the-closet homosexual who I believe is married to another person in the entertainment industry. I believe the person that he's married to is a screenwriter or something like that.
The Me Too movement, which inspired women to come forward. The movement also revealed allegations against many powerful men, including Charlie Rose and Les Moonves here at CBS.
Poor Charlie Rose. I miss Charlie.
And Kill, Ronan Farrow says he had reporting in August 2017 about Harvey Weinstein's alleged sexual misconduct, including anonymous corroborating witnesses, a silhouetted accuser on camera, and even secretly recorded audio with Weinstein accuser Ambra Gutierrez.
Why yesterday you touched my breast?
Please, I'm sorry, just come on, I'm used to that.
But
The chick asked Harvey, how come you touched my breast? He said, oh, please, I'm sorry. I'm used to that. Come on. Can I just see a little bit of a nipple?
Farrow claims NBC said it wasn't enough. He says
Not to digress, but every once in a while I'll have brothers ask me, what does that emblem for NBC represent, the peacock emblem? The peacock is a symbol of the mother goddess, for those of you who don't know, in her incarnation as Hera. I believe she is the consort of Zeus, known in the Roman mythology as Juno, the quote-unquote dove goddess. All of these various manifestations represent the same energy, either of Eve or Semiramis. But that is what the peacock emblem of NBC represents. It represents the mother goddess. In the same way that you have the quote-unquote Eye of Heru or the Eye of Hathor that CBS uses, they all venerate the father god, that being the horn god, and the mother goddess. It's just that, once again, the mother goddess energy or the mother goddess archetype is far more quote-unquote comforting, allegedly. So that makes it more palatable for the masses to accept. If they had emblems of horns and stuff like that, and a creature who has the upper body of a man and the lower body of a horse or a goat, people would not accept that, because that would be too much of an affront due to the image that has been embedded in the subconscious of the human mind of Satan or the devil being half man, half goat, and having horns. So instead they push the energy of the mother goddess on the masses.
President Noah Oppenheim eventually suggested Farrow take the story elsewhere, writing, quote, any further reporting you're doing is not on behalf of or with the blessing of NBC. Farrow published his investigation nearly 2 months later in The New Yorker.
It is not Ronan Farrow's job to do what NBC wants him to do. It is his job, once again, to act as a change agent, a social engineer, to produce as many inflammatory stories as he can possibly muster on any prominent heterosexual males in the entertainment sphere, so that they can attack masculinity that way. Am I saying that there were not any indiscretions that were executed in the entertainment world, whether it be Matt Lauer on NBC or Charlie Rose on CBS or whoever in the movie world, or male singers, male actors, male athletes, or what have you? I'm not saying that. There are some dudes who have overstepped their boundaries, but what they're going to do is they're going to use these particular indiscretions or alleged indiscretions to try to make men in that world scared to even speak to women, much less tell them no. That's their only inroads to try to establish some level of dominance or supremacy for the woman in that world, because they know if she's left to her own merits, she's not going to be able to do what they want her to do. They want the woman to be the symbolic head of this society, at least on the level of the masses, because that will make everyone much easier to manipulate. Men will start leading with their emotions, trying to follow women. That will thus make everyone easier to control.
Catch and Kill also names one of Matt Lauer's accusers for the first time, former NBC employee Brooke Nevels.
Now this person here, Brooke Nevels, she's a producer at NBC, as already was stated. She alleged that while she and Matt Lauer were at the Sochi Olympics, the Winter Olympics, one night they both got a little bit drunk, a little tipsy. They went back to his hotel room, and according to her, he forcibly anally raped her. That's according to her. Those are her allegations. Then they came back to the States, and they had a consensual relationship thereafter, according to her, even though she claims that she was anally raped in Sochi. Of course, after the relationship ended, she decided that she was going to push and promote this story that she was sexually assaulted by Matt Lauer. Do I believe it? Look, it's not up to me to believe. But just looking at those factoids, it sounds like a woman scorned. Brothers have to be very careful in these relationships, especially if you decide to deal with someone in the workplace. We have to be careful dealing with regular females that you meet out here on the street, at the club, in the library, at church, wherever, because these females are bugged out of their fucking minds, man. But if you decide that you're going to establish a relationship with someone in the workplace, always consider what's going to transpire, especially since most of these females have an axe to grind. They have a lot of mileage on themselves mentally because of the various forms of traumatic situations that they have subjected themselves to in relationships or from childhood. So you never know what's going on in a woman's spirit or in her mind. So tread very carefully.
Lauer raped her in his hotel room at the 2014 Sochi Olympics. That accusation led to Lauer's dismissal from it.
Just the accusation led to his dismissal. Do you understand what territory we're heading into now? That's why I state we all have to be careful in who we decide to establish a rapport or a relationship with. Because what they're trying to create is an atmosphere where a woman can make an allegation and a man has to suffer the repercussions or the consequences of an allegation, because these networks are concerned with optics, not the truth.
NBC for sexual misconduct in November 2017. Lauer staunchly denies an assault took place, saying the encounter was consensual.
I believe you, sir. I believe that it was consensual, but it is what it is. Let's be for real, Matt Lauer. You've been very loose with your dick for many decades now. So it's only a matter of time before some of these broads try to jump up and bite you on the ass.
Tonight, Lauer's attorney fought back, writing, Farrow continues his attempt to monetize the Me Too movement.
He's not just trying to monetize the Me Too movement. Behind the scenes, Ronan Farrow has a very important function as a change agent, aka an agent of chaos in that world.
Salacious allegations as promotional trinkets to sell his book. And NBC's Noah Oppenheim also released a new rebuttal, writing, Matt Lauer's actions were abhorrent. Ronan Farrow's book takes that undeniable fact and twists it into a lie, alleging we were a company with a lot of secrets.
Every mega corporation, every large company has a lot of secrets, Noah Oppenheim. Just knock it off, man. Of course, there were dudes hitting on women. There were women hitting on dudes. And that's the main problem. A lot of the allegations that are levied against men by women are actually applicable to them. A lot of females treat the workplace as a dating service. A lot of them become very upset and unprofessional when the man that they find attractive turns them down. But most men don't report it.
We have no secrets and nothing to hide.
Everybody has secrets and everybody has something to hide. The bigger you get, the bigger you grow, the more secrets and the more things that you have to hide.
He also calls Farrow's claim about their quashing the Weinstein story a conspiracy theory. And Ronan Farrow joins us now. Welcome, Ronan.
Good to be here.
In this statement from NBC, which I should say is 6 pages long.
Very deep.
Once again, just looking at this person, Ronan Farrow's body type, his body mechanics, or what have you, his body language, extremely feminine. Now, as I've already stated, he isn't out of the closet homosexual, but also, as I've already stated, it would not surprise me, not saying that this person is, but it would not surprise me if he were a female to male transgender.
Yeah, NBC News President Noah Oppenheim says your book is, quote, built on a series of distortions, confused timelines, and outright inaccuracies.
Look, this book is an extraordinarily meticulously fact-checked work of investigative journalism. It's 2 years of reporting. One of the senior fact-checkers at the New Yorker checked it. I'll let the reporting in the book stand on its own. We're very confident in it, and it's been amazing to see how the press has rallied around it. I think
Let me say this also. If you're a prominent person in the entertainment world, you also have to consider, especially in this quote-unquote environment of the Me Too movement, that there are going to be certain females sent to you to entrap you, to get you caught up in a storyline so that you could be the next sacrificial lamb for the destruction of the quote-unquote patriarchy.
Seen it for what it is.
What have you heard from people inside NBC?
There has been an outpouring of support from journalists at this company and sources coming forward saying they too have stories.
Do you understand how many people working at NBC most likely have access to grind, whether it be against Matt Lauer or Noah Oppenheim or whoever the studio heads are there, because they did not receive the promotion they thought that they deserved? Maybe they got dumped by Matt Lauer, maybe they got hit on by Noah Oppenheim, and even if it was not something that was disrespectful, they still felt some type of way. Everyone's going to be clamoring for attention with this storyline. And when I say this storyline, I'm talking about the quote-unquote Me Too movement.
Common. All of this is honestly very common with these kinds of investigative stories. When I reported those stories about CBS that you just mentioned, similar campaign to undercut the reporting that revved up, and similar support that ultimately carried the day.
Well, there was always two sides to every story. I'm really curious because Matt Lauer came out really with guns blazing, responding to you.
Let's keep it real, Gail. You're probably friends with Matt Lauer. And let's keep it even more real. You probably wanted him to hit that about 15 or 20 years ago. And you're hoping that if you side with him on TV, maybe you'll finally get some.
Made it very clear from his point of view that it was certainly consensual and she was very willing. This really is a he said, she said story, Ronan, at the end of the day.
Isn't everything? You know what's so interesting? When Gayle King sat down with Harvey Weinstein's lawyer stated pretty much the exact same thing. And you know how Gayle King responded? She said, "When are men going to be held accountable for their actions?" That's what Gayle King stated. That's why, once again, I always tell you, brothers, when these females get upset, it's mostly about who it is who tried to sleep with them, not the act that was offered. They don't mind sleeping with men, especially men that they find attractive, if the bonus is going to be that they're going to get a raise or they're going to get a promotion. To them, it's like two great things. While I get to sleep with a good-looking, powerful man and I get a promotion, why would I turn that down? That's what goes on in their subconscious, despite what they say overtly. But when someone like a Harvey Weinstein demands that you sleep with him in order to get on, and then a lot of times he does not even look out for you after the fact, that's what embitters them. And we're seeing this here to a small degree with Gayle King. That's why I just wanted to highlight it. How differently the same situation will be assessed based on how much you quote unquote like the person or don't like that individual person. Gayle King's job is to be as objective as possible because she is a member of the media.
The allegations about Matt Lauer, how do you decide who is telling the truth here?
So I think one of the transformations of recent years.
Knock it off. Forget one of the transformations of recent years. The woman is telling the truth, the man is lying. You start from that baseline. Then you go and interview the woman, and once you see that you cannot coach her into making her story as sensible and linear as possible, then you'll just drop the story. None of these major networks ever issue a public apology to all of the prominent men that they accuse of committing these acts that one might consider to be heinous. Remember the football player Reuben Foster? Supposedly he beat the hell out of his woman. That was found to be a lie. ESPN never did a segment saying we were mistaken on Reuben Foster and the accusations that were publicly made towards him that demean and diminish his character and credibility publicly. They never do that. But when it comes to the woman and her allegations, her assertions, her suppositions, we're just going to believe the woman. That's actually a credo of the Me Too movement. Believe the woman.
Is that we've come to understand that actually, I come at this from a legal background, you can corroborate claims of sexual violence. And Brooke Neville's claim has been found credible even by NBC News, which took the step of firing Matt Lauer, and same by me and by the fact checkers working on this.
That's interesting. So Brooke Neville's storyline was found to be credible by NBC News and yourself, but was it found to be credible by the police? Was it found to be credible by any medical official or a member of a medical staff who may have been able to examine her private area to ascertain whether or not she was actually anally raped, which should be relatively easy to prove? So what does it matter whether or not you found it to be credible if she herself did not deem it to be credible enough to report it? That's the issue that many modern day men who have a sharp mind are concerned with. This is very dangerous territory that people are going into, but it's transparent, and that's why I constantly attempt to explain these things to you, brothers, because that's what it's really about. Everything is spiritual. These people off camera are Luciferians, meaning what? They outright worship the mother goddess and the horned god and the divine child, believe it or not. People like Ronan Farrow are primed and raised to become the change agents that they eventually grow into. For those of you who don't know, he was sent to a school for quote-unquote gifted kids. I believe it was called the John Hopkins School for Talented Youth. It reminds me of the Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters in the X-Men. And not to digress, but as I've stated in other videos, the X-Men are meant to be symbolic or metaphorical for witches. A lot of these quote-unquote talented kids that are sent to certain institutions, they're trained to be components of or advocates for or initiators of what's known as the great work, which is globalism and getting everyone on the earth to once again embrace that divine trinity. That's what the end game is. They're trying to do the same thing that Nimrod and his father Cush were trying to do in Genesis, the 11th chapter at the Tower of Babel. It's the same thing. All these groups, these illuminist groups, whether it's the Trilateral Commission or the Council of Foreign Relations, they all have the same end game.
Describes an evening that matches up with a timeline given by others there. There were eyewitnesses to what happened before and after that moment. She described this event consistently over the years. And
let me also say this. There are other people who attended that school that he went to, people like Lady Gaga, also Mark Zuckerberg. Like, these are major global movers and shakers, and that's why I state that most of these prominent singers or rappers or what have you, yes, we can go through a lot of their symbolism, their photographs, and say, look at what they're doing. This is what that symbol means, or that's what that hand pose means. They're not just taught that in the record industry. Many of them are raised in that understanding, whether it be Wicca or Satanism, Luciferianism, etc. So that by the time they get into the industry, they already have a firm grasp of what being a witch means. Someone like a Ronan Farrow, he was raised in the Kabbalah. Remember, he was raised in the home of Mia Farrow and Woody Allen. So once again, he was raised to do what he's doing right now, which is to promote homosexuality, which is another manifestation of the feminine energy, and to attack any form of male assertiveness.
Telling that NBC News paid her a 7-figure settlement to ensure that she can't talk about what the network knew about this.
Well, I want to stop you about your fact-checking process, because Matt Lauer's lawyer says many allegations that are being circulated were never raised during any fact-checking process, and despite repeated requests for an advance copy of the book, have not been provided to me. Did you have a conversation? Did you talk to Matt at any time?
Look, very often, without talking about Matt Lauer specifically, as you know, in our profession, people will fact check or have conversations and give you the responses in an off-the-record capacity or under some other ground rule that prevents me from answering a question directly like that. Mm-hmm. However, I will say that every single individual where there's a serious allegation against them described in this book had an ample, fair window to fact check. And with respect to Matt Lauer specifically, when you read the book, it's very clear this section is fair and even generous to him.
So in other words, you're calling Matt Lauer a liar. You're saying that he did have the opportunity to fact check some of the initial drafts of your book. I'm pretty sure that he's going to contest that. But once again, this person, Ronan Farrow, you're going to be hearing a lot from over the course of the next 30 or 40 years, if this society lasts that long. Let me also say he came up through UNICEF. For those of you who don't know what UNICEF is, that's another one of those front organizations for the UN that acts as if they care about children in third world countries, when in all actuality, their goal is to act as if they're inoculating or helping to medicate some of the people across the globe who might be in impoverished conditions, when they're really just trying to make sure that the woman can no longer bring forth child. It's a process that they call quote-unquote family planning, where they masquerade vaccinations and inoculations that are actually just sterilizations. And this has been going on for 5 or 6 decades now, but that's a whole other video for another day. But he came up through UNICEF. He also basically was the front man for Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State in the White House. He was someone who spoke up for what they call the Arab Spring uprisings. Many of you brothers might remember about 10 years ago, there were a lot of coups that were being executed in many of the Islamic countries in Northern Africa and parts of the Middle East. He was a major advocate for that because he was basically the right hand of Hillary Clinton when it came to promoting what they call the Arab Spring uprising. That was around the time where Gaddafi was taken out of power, if you brothers remember that, about 10 or 11 years ago.
Thinking is reflected in detail. So there was nothing surprising in that letter, except obviously, as many survivors have commented on, the tone, which was very angry and had some menace in it, was surprising to some people.
One of the major discrepancies between what NBC is saying and what you're reporting is the question of agreements prior to Matt Lauer's firing, apparently involving women, apparently involving misbehavior. NBC says this morning that those were completely routine, not related to sexual harassment or assault. What makes you say otherwise?
Tony, they had a euphemism at this company called enhanced severance. And we talked to multiple people involved in each of those transactions, including senior executives on the NBC side who were involved in them, who said these were explicitly arrangements to shut up women with allegations of misconduct within this company. And that's something we saw at CBS. We've seen in other media companies.
That's common, though. That does not necessarily mean that the executives at CBS or NBC were sexually harassing or sexually assaulting women. All that means is that they expect the woman to try to bring a ruckus, to try to bring major issues that are going to cause confusion. I'm also not saying that sexual assaults did not happen. I'm just saying that whenever you involve the woman in a mass of people that you hope are going to allow things to run smoothly, people who are part of a corporation or part of a business, you know that there are going to be a certain segment of women that are going to bring trouble, because the woman lusts after attention however she can get it. And when you combine that with the natural urge of the man and the woman to couple up, when things don't go right, issues that normally are meant to transpire in the household are now transpiring in offices. People are embittered and you never know what the hell they're going to say. If you're an entertainer, singer, actor, athlete, you already have a process of non-disclosure agreements where you just pay off a woman who's complaining about something. Everybody says, well, R. Kelly, he must have done that to all those women because look at how many NDAs he had these women sign. Almost every prominent athlete or actor or politician has that same process, because you never know who's going to say what about you.
And it's a practice that correctly is being called into question by journalists.
They say in the statement enhanced severance was routine and was paid out to hundreds, if not thousands of people.
And what we document in this book is that these...
So I have to ask you, do you really believe that hundreds, if not thousands of people were the victims of sexual assault or sexual harassment? I seriously doubt that. I mean, come on.
Were an elevated amount that was atypical. And look, we fully include in the book their claim that it is coincidental that these women had complaints about Matt Lauer and about others, including executives there. The people involved say something else.
The bulk of the book, though, is about your efforts to tell the Harvey Weinstein story and working. It's very ironic that the Black Cube people that were following you allegedly at Harvey's...
The Black Cube people were basically private investigators that supposedly Harvey Weinstein had follow Mr. Ronan Farrow to figure out exactly what his end game was. It's just very interesting that the name of the investigative firm is the Black Cube. Many of you brothers know the Black Cube represents the cube of Saturn.
Ended up reaching out to you because they wanted to talk to you about how they felt about the job they were doing. But the bulk of the book is about your efforts to tell the Harvey Weinstein story, and in the end, NBC killed the story because they said you did not have enough facts that didn't reach their level of journalism. How do we know that this is not just they're saying it's an act?
And let me also say this before it skips my mind. When you see the quote-unquote Caucasian Jews wear what they call the phylacteries on their hand, on their forehead, that's for the cube of Saturn. They worship Saturn, also known as Baal. They just call him the Most High, or they call him by a certain name. But they worship Saturn. And that black cube that they wear, that they call the phylactery, that is a microcosm of their worship or their veneration for Baal, also known as, once again, Saturn, also known as Ptah or Ptah Men, also known as Osiris.
Brian, on your part.
So the book is, as I said, fair and even generous. I mean, at every turn, there was a very extensive fact-checking process to make sure every one of their rebuttals is in there.
Because the Harvey story didn't run on NBC, ultimately took it to
the New Yorker, and obviously the producer who worked on that story at a working level put out a piece in the last few days corroborating that, saying we were ordered to stop. And that is the point, Gail. There are untruths being put out by NBC. There's lies in that statement that wouldn't...
I'm sure that there are untruths being put out by you as well. Let me also say this person, Ronan Farrow, is a Rhodes Scholar. And I'm sure that most of you brothers out there know what a Rhodes Scholar is. Basically, that's someone who has a high enough level of mental aptitude or cognitive function that they're deemed as being someone who is capable of embracing a higher level role in the great work. They're sent over to Oxford. Sometimes they also attend Cambridge. And once they are able to, quote unquote, graduate from those institutions, they're almost guaranteed a high level position in the entertainment world, whether it is as a politician, a media member. Like, for example, Bill Clinton is a Rhodes Scholar. Cory Booker is a Rhodes Scholar. The homosexual out of Indiana, I believe his name is Pete Buttigieg. I call him Pete Booty Gay. He's a Rhodes Scholar and also a Jesuit. So we have to have an understanding of what that means to be a Rhodes Scholar. Susan Rice also is a Rhodes Scholar, former member of the National Security Council under Obama. So when you're a Rhodes Scholar, that means that you have been highly prepped. Back in the day, the old New York Knick, Bill Bradley, he was a Rhodes Scholar as well. He attended Princeton and then went to England to study at Oxford. And that normally is a pathway also. They'll go to what they call Ivy League institutions, whether it be Harvard, Yale, Princeton. I believe also Brown University is a Ivy League institution. Sometimes they'll go to Stanford. Stanford is a major hub for MK Ultra. Columbia University as well, another Ivy League institution that is a major hub for mind control. They'll graduate from there go to Oxford, become an official Rhodes Scholar, and then get sent out into the world to become a change agent. Of course, the term Rhodes Scholar comes from Cecil Rhodes, who was an imperialist from the late 1800s, who wanted to make sure that the entire planet fell under the authority of Great Britain. But that's a whole other video for another day.
They admitted to us they never fact-checked any of these memos that you referred to, rebutting this. They are concealing the fact that they actively ordered us to stop. Yes, we had multiple named women in every draft of this story. We had audio of Harvey Weinstein admitting to a crime. But more pertinently, they ordered us to stop. This book answers why.
Well, they ordered you to stop, but it hasn't stopped yet. The conversation continues. It's ongoing.
It's an important one, including at this company, and I appreciate how transparent you guys have all been in confronting that after my reporting about CBS. It's been.
They had no option, man. You got Charlie Rose fired. Charlie Rose, you know, he normally wake up with a hole on each side in his bed. Now he only got one woman on it in his bed with him now because of you, Ronan Farrow. Or should I say Ronan Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra, one of the top MK programmers / handlers of the 1950s and 60s. He presided over all of the MK assets in Las Vegas during that time period. People like Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley, they all fell under the authority of Frank Sinatra during that time period. And we know about his associations with the U.S. government as well as with the mafia as well.
A lot of change.
Of course, everything that I'm saying is alleged.
Journalists here are happy about that. And journalists...
Well, we never thought we'd be part of that story, so...
Absolutely. And you did great coverage of it.
About it.
And, you know, on the NBC side, there are fantastic journalists at that company.
Exactly
the book is a tribute to them. Many of them are sources in this story. And they are anguished over what's happening right now and some of the lies that are being put out by their own corporate leadership and some of the executive interference and coverage. It's a good conversation that's happening.
Ronan, thank you very much.
It's a good conversation that's happening. As long as we can make sure that by 2045, 75% of men in America are homosexual. That's the main focus.
This book, Catch and Kill: Lies, Spies, and a Conspiracy to Protect Predators, goes on sale tomorrow.
You know, since you guys are so worried about conspiracies to protect predators, whatever happened to that Kevin Spacey story? Dude got accused of sexually assaulting multiple young boys, and that story just went away. Ain't that some shit? But you still focus on Me Too. Wow. But anyway, peace.